Sometime about 1977, I got a phone call saying, would I like to come and have lunch with the Queen? And I said, come on, Eric, what do you really want? And because I really thought it was Eric being funny, using a different voice. But it sort of seemed that it was authentic. And a few days later, that arrived, and there it was. I was invited to have lunch with the Queen. And as you can see right down in the bottom, it says dress lounge suit. So on the day in question, I slept a little extra so that I would look nice and relaxed. And I shaved and showered and got ready and went to the closet to get my one and only good suit, because that's the way I am, a slob, basically. I have just the one suit. And I opened the cupboard up, and it wasn't there. This is about 11:15, and I was supposed to be at Buckingham Palace at 1 o'clock. And of course I panicked, and I suddenly thought, I used it last week when I was shooting for Video Arts. I rang Video Arts. I got my old friend Maggie Tree, who basically ran the company. I said, Maggie, you remember I loaned my suit to Video Arts last week we were shooting. Do you know where it is? And thank God she said, yeah, it's in the cupboard here. I said, well, would you please give it to a motorcyclist and get it to my address as soon as you possibly can, because I have to put it on and go and have lunch with the Queen. So it eventually arrived, and I put it on, and I was looking okay, and then a rather odd thing happened. My little kitty is chattering away here, so you can join us for a moment. A rather odd thing happened, because I'd had an upset tummy for 2 or 3 days, and just before I left for Buckingham Palace, I thought to myself, I'm going to take one of those little white pills just to make sure that my tummy stays not upset. And I took one, and then as I walked out the door, I had this awful thought, and I went back to the cupboard and looked at the little pot that had the white pills in, and right next to it was another identical little pot that had identical white pills in it, which happened to be sleeping pills. And I suddenly thought to myself, I'm going to be sitting there at lunch with him as drop off with my head on her shoulder. Anyway, I got to Buckingham Palace. Apparently I had taken the right pill, and I found that the guests there were these people. An extraordinary selection, and let me read them to you. There was Iris Murdoch, the novelist. There was the Reverend Canon Simon Barrington Ward, who was General Secretary of the Church Missionary Society. There was me. There was the Governor of Leeds Prison, Mr. John Humphreys, who was Chairman of the Water Space Amenity Commission, Sir Ronald McIntosh, Director General of the National Economic Development Office, the Chairman of a big shipping line, and a Professor of Anatomy from Oxford called Professor Wetherall. And this group of people were sort of assembled in a room, and we were given little drinks by the ladies-in-waiting, who were terribly nice. They really went out of their way to make sure that we were at ease. And suddenly, the Queen walks in, and you find yourself talking to the Queen. And, of course, there is an impulse to say extraordinarily stupid things like, I've seen you on the stamps, and things like that. But somehow we managed to have a reasonable conversation. And then we sat down, and that is where we were sitting. I wasn't sitting right next to anyone royal. I was sitting next to a lovely lady-in-waiting, and next to the Professor of Anatomy. And we had an extraordinarily nice lunch, at which the Queen served 2 beautiful German wines, both, I'd like to add, slightly sweet. So let's not get too snotty about sweet wines, because if they're good enough for the Queen, they're good enough for most of us. And we had an extremely nice conversation and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. And at the end, we left and thought, well, wasn't that fun? Although I was left thinking, I actually wonder what the Queen got out of it.